Hello, hello. If you're just hopping on, tell me who you are, where you're from. Hello, hello. Just cleaning my glasses. Hey, Wayne. How are you? How you doing? If you're just hopping on, tell me who you are, where you're from. So tonight we're going to talk about rebuilding trust after loss. I haven't been on it all this week, so I got to get myself back in the swing of things. But if you're new here, tell me who you are, where you're from. If you're not familiar, my name is Renee. Welcome. Just going to wait for a few more people to hop on and then we'll get going. Every time I get on, my nose goes crazy. My grandma would say, somebody's talking about me. Probably so. If you're just hopping on and you're new here, tell us who you are, where you're from. Hello, hello. Hi, Renee. Just lost my mom on June 28th. I'm so heartbroken. Is she around you? Well, I'm not doing mini reads tonight, but I can tell you they're always around you. And if you just tell her, just talk to her like you normally would, she can hear you. So tonight we're talking about rebuilding trust after loss. Usually Wednesday nights are my mini read nights, but I wasn't on last night. So I apologize, guys. And I posted, but I don't think TikTok posted it. They do that sometimes where they won't show it. So I don't think anybody knew I wasn't on last night. Other than if you were looking for me and you didn't find me. Thank you for the likes, guys. I do appreciate that. Those really do help. So if you can just keep tapping that screen. I'm just going to wait another minute and see who else hops on, and then we will get going. So tell me about your loss with your mom. Thank you for the badge. I appreciate that. Do you have a name and where you're from? Tell me what that looks like. You said you're incredibly heartbroken. Aw, thank you for the heart, me. I appreciate that. If you're still there, it was Suzanne, right? I think I got that right. Let me scroll back really, really quick. Yeah, Suzanne. June 28th. So yeah, that's still pretty fresh, huh? Are you still there, Suzanne? Can you tell me what you're doing to cope with that? Are you doing anything? So if you're just hopping on with us and you're new here, tell me who you are, where you're from. If you're not familiar, my name is Renee and I am from Iowa at the moment. And tonight we're going to be talking about rebuilding trust after loss. Okay. Let's see. We're just going to plateau out. We'll just get going. Just give it one more second here. So if you're just hopping on, tell me who you are, where you're from. Lost my 50-year-old son unexpectedly on April 7th. I am so sorry. Is it Dean? So how are you dealing with that, Dean? Are you dealing with it? Would you say you're dealing with it, not dealing with it? Thank you for all the likes, guys. I do appreciate that. Those really do help. And you know that if somebody's got a loss, we do talk about that first. That always takes precedence over whatever we're going to talk about tonight. So if you guys need to talk about it, don't be shy. I'm just going to do my thing really, really quick here. So if you're new here, my name is Renee. I started my TikTok in March of 2024. The reason I started my TikTok, no, not dealing with it. Okay, well, you're in the right place. Are you following me, Dean? You know, you can message me afterwards. I just followed you so I can find you. If you need help figuring out what those first couple steps are. Okay. So, but feel free to talk about it here. That's what we do here. I'm just going to run through my thing real quick. Like I said, my name is Renee. I started my TikTok in March of 2024. The reason I started my TikTok is because in September of 2023, for TikTok purposes, my husband unalived himself. My husband and I were together for 32 years, never apart more than 2 weeks in those 32 years. And so after he passed, my entire world of 32 years crumbled. And I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. You're in denial. Okay, well, that's perfectly normal. I understand that. Let me hold on a second. And so when everybody just kept telling me to put one foot in front of the other, I didn't know how to do that. I literally couldn't do that. Like, I couldn't breathe. I had never lived an adult life without him. I didn't know how to move forward. And so once I had decided that I was going to stay on this planet, hold on, I was going to turn my light down, see if it goes down anymore. There we go. It glares in my glasses. Once I had decided I was going to stay on this planet, I had to find a way to heal myself because my husband didn't leave me in a great spot financially. So therapy was out, and I'm the circle that don't fit in the square and the unique girl. And so I knew that group therapy probably wasn't going to work for me either. So I started to deep dive into meditation and into journaling. So Dean, I don't know if you're a writer, or a hiker or somebody that likes to exercise. Those are really great things. What I call for the muddled mind. For me, exercise and going out into nature was amazing. I would meditate, and then, if my mind was really muddled, I would go to the gym. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. I would go to the gym. That just kind of helped. I don't know something about endorphins. It's above my pay grade, but I do know that it did help with my mind when my mind would be racing with all of these different things. For me, it was, what am I going to do? We didn't show me this, and I don't know how to do this. And I mean, there was just all these different scenarios that I was really freaking out about, that now hindsight's obviously 2020. And I look back and it's like things that I didn't need to freak out about because most of them kind of worked themselves out. But there was times that I was just muddled because I didn't know how to do it alone. And so, exercising would help me. The biggest thing, Dean, is when those emotions come, is feeling them, right? Having a moment. It's okay to have moments, maybe 20, 30 moments in your day, but don't unpack and live there, right? Don't stay in your bed. Now, some people like myself, I did isolate for about 2 weeks. For me, because if you're in the denial stage, that's kind of where I was at in the beginning too. Thank you for the heart, me. I appreciate that. And so for me, I did isolate a little bit because I had to wrap my brain around it before I could even take a step forward. Does that make sense? And that kind of sounds like that's kind of where you're at too, is that you need to just kind of take a step back and just, realize what is happening and that it has happened, and be able to wrap your brain around what happened. And then you can move forward, but never be afraid to, to have those moments. You too. What's the you too for? Did I miss something? Sorry, TikTok doesn't always show me all my comments. So sometimes I'll get one comment and not another. Sorry, I can't tell if there's a hair on my screen. It's bugging the crap out of me. There we go. Okay. You're new here. Welcome. And where are you from? My name is Renee, if you missed it. And we talk about loss here and trauma, and we build up others. And it's just kind of a page for people to come if they've had a loss or if they're just feeling alone. Maine, welcome. Glad to have you here. So tonight we were going to talk about rebuilding trust after loss, but if you're new to my page, if somebody has a loss and they need to talk about it, that always takes precedence over whatever we're going to talk about for the night. I discovered that I had abilities after I lost my husband. And so I learned that I could communicate with my spirit guides. And so they always give me my whatever we're going to talk about for the night generally. My brother was, and I can't say that word, unalived on 8/15/25, so I understand your topics. Okay, well, you're in a great place to talk about it if you would like to talk about it. How are you dealing with it? Are you dealing with that? Like where would you say you are in your stage of grief? No, I didn't leave my husband. My husband left me. He unalived himself September 14th of 2023. It awakened you. You just want a sign? Okay, so you need drowning. Oh, boy, do I understand that well. Let me get to Dean real quick. So Dean, you need to ask him for a sign. For me, I couldn't wait to go to bed at night because I knew that he would come in my dreams. Especially if it was a sudden thing sometimes, like if they were unalived or unalived themselves, or it was very sudden. Sometimes they will come to you in your dreams because they didn't have closure. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hi, Pat. Drowning. So what are you doing, would you say? Is it Brina? I don't want to say your name wrong. I hate it when I slaughter people's names. If you're just hopping on to, tell us who you are, where you're from, if you're new here. If you're not familiar, my name is Renee. Welcome. So are you doing anything for the drowning? It's short for Sabrina. Okay, can I just call you Sabrina? I don't want to slaughter your name. Thank you for the follow. Is it Pat? Where are you from, Pat? Okay, good. So when you say drowning, I understand. I completely understand. I was drowning for quite a while. You avoid it. Okay. So that's what I call here. What I always talk about is you're shoving it under the rug and pretending it's not happening, right? But the problem with that is that eventually that rug's gonna fill up and you're gonna trip over that rug. I always like to use this scenario, the rug, because I had a full-term stillborn in 1994, and I had a 3-year-old to take care of at home. And so he keeps coming to you. Okay, well, that's a good thing, right? He's probably wanting you to know, reassuring you that he's okay since he was unalived. And so I had a 3-year-old to take care of at home. And so I didn't think I could grieve. So I waited. And it was about 2 years later, finally, I just kind of shoved it under the rug. And then like 2 years later, it came back and hit me. And it was like I ran into a brick wall. So it's not something I recommend. And even if you just take baby steps, right? Little baby steps. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. If you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. So baby steps, maybe journaling, right? You keep wanting for his death to, okay. I have to be careful what I say and what I read. Yes. He don't want you to, because this is the thing about when they've crossed over, they don't want us to be sad. They don't want us to be in limbo. They don't want any of that, right? They want you to know that they're at peace, and so they want you at peace. Thank you for the heart me. I appreciate that. Thank you. So that's the thing is, Rhonda from Alabama, welcome. Glad to have you here. But yes, more than likely, he just wants you to know, like I said, because he was unalived, he wants you to know that he is at peace and he's okay. Because a lot of times, obviously, that's kind of an unsettling way to go. And so, you might feel unsettled and they don't want you to feel that way. He's your guide now. They do. Yep. Sometimes they will become your guides or your angels. It doesn't really matter the classification, but yes. Does he talk to you? And how does he come to you? You said he comes to you. Thank you for all of those, Daniel. I appreciate it. How, when you say he comes to you, you see him. Okay, so you have abilities. I would love to talk to you sometime about your abilities in that case. And he touches you. Wow, that's cool. I don't see. I'm just starting to get the see thing. I feel, sense, hear. But in March, I did see my aunt. So she's the first spirit I've actually ever seen. So tell me, do you want to stop drowning? Do you want to stop shoving it under the rug? Thank you, Daniel. The best way to get out of denial is, are you looking at his pictures? Are you journaling to him? Are you talking to him? You said you were wanting a sign. Thank you for the rose. I appreciate that. You were trauma bonded. Oh, wow. But you're a mom too. I get that. You do write often. Okay, that's good. That's a good outlet. That's awesome. Whew. Sorry, it's just got really warm in here. All right. Is Dean still in here? Dean, are you still here? If you're just hopping on with us and you're new, tell us who you are, where you're from. You self-isolate for the first 8 months. Thank you for those. Is it Vicky? I appreciate that so much. I understand the self-isolate. Just hopefully know yourself well enough to know when maybe you need to not do that. Does that make sense? Do you know yourself well enough to know you're slipping and you need to not? That's what I tell everybody, is just be able to know yourself well enough. Because that's how I am. I can be that way sometimes. Sometimes I just need to take a step back by myself and have my time and kind of process things. But knowing yourself well enough to know when you're no longer processing it and you might need some help. You ventured out again working, but his anniversary is next month. Okay, well, let me tell you something. He wants you to celebrate him, right? He doesn't want you to mourn him. So that's a big thing with them. They still want to be part of your life here, even when they're not here. So celebrate his life, not how he passed or his passing. Does that make sense? Right? He wants you to celebrate him and his life. And actually, I just got a yes, which you probably already know, because if he's communicating with you. You're still here, but had to leave. It's okay. I'm struggling with my sister's unalived. I have to say it that way, otherwise TikTok will kick me off. I understand. I lost my husband, unalived himself September of 2023. So I get that. Is it Corinna? I'm not sure. I don't want to slaughter your name. Sibling loss is a whole different animal. Yeah, just kind of like spouse loss is a whole different animal. I think it all falls into different animal, right? Losing a child, losing a parent. There's so many different. Yes. Okay, good. I know. I want to make sure I didn't slaughter your name. So what are you doing? Where are you in your loss process, your grieving process with your losing your sister? Dean, when did you say you lost your son? Forgive me, I usually write it down and I forgot. 4 months ago. Okay, so where are you in your process? Do you have a process? Sorry, my phone's always dinging. April 17th. And you're still in the denial part of it? You're in therapy? Okay, that's great. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. Would you say you're angry, Dean? Or you just literally can't wrap your head around it. If you're just hopping on with us, tell us who you are, where you're from. Tonight we're talking about loss. That always comes first on my page. We were supposed to be talking about rebuilding trust after loss, but that'll be another night because tonight we're discussing loss. So if you've had a loss and you're struggling, feel free to pipe in. One of the things I didn't get a chance to say is we're not shy here. Bree from Oregon, welcome. What part of Oregon? I love Oregon. I've been all over Oregon. No, just can't wrap. Okay. Will you message me after so we can have a chat? Dean. Beaverton. Okay. Callie. Callie, do you have a name? Jeannie from New York, welcome. Thank you for all the likes. I do appreciate that. If you guys can just tap that screen, they really do help me. Let's go back a second. Hopefully I'm not missing. You messaged me? Okay. Otherwise, I'll message you if I don't see anything when I get done. Let's talk about getting you over that denial hump, right? Because you have to get over that in order to be able to move forward. And obviously, you'll bounce in the whole grieving process. You'll bounce back and forth, right? You'll have valleys and you'll have hills, and you'll bounce back and forth between sadness and grief and denial, and all of that will come into play. How do you message me? I followed you, Dean, and so I will message you, okay? After we get done here. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Okay. Anybody else have anything else they want to talk about? Otherwise, we're going to kind of just touch on the topic tonight. You're so welcome. Okay. Did everybody get out what they needed to talk about tonight? If you're new here, my name is Renee. Welcome. If you're new, tell me who you are, where you're from. Tonight we're talking about rebuilding trust after loss, which is a struggle. I know from firsthand experience. I only trusted two people in this world before my husband passed. That was my mother and my husband. And when my husband left, that not only shattered my world, but it crumbled my ability to trust for a long time. So that's what we're going to talk about, unless anybody else has a loss they want to talk about. By the way, I only have two rules here. The first one is we just always be kind. And the second one is we talk absolutely no politics here. It's not at all what my page is about. There's a million other pages out there for that. I always like to say I'm on my journey of life where I am, and you're on your journey of life where you are, and none of us are going to agree on everything. And so we agree to disagree here. And if you can't do that, I just ask that you hop off and keep scrolling. And so rebuilding trust after loss, what does that look like? So loss doesn't just mean losing somebody to being unalived, right? So it can be a painful breakup or even a sudden betrayal, right? Often changes your sense of safety, making connections feel risky. And for me, like I said, when you take a vow to love somebody for the rest of your life and they suddenly check out on you after 32 years, that brought up a lot of trust issues for me. And even a little bit of abandonment, because I still had some abandonment issues from my dad. But definitely trust issues. And so what is the first thing that we do right after that is when we don't trust, we have a tendency to put up maybe a wall. And so we're going to kind of talk about navigating that journey and what does that look like? So if you're just hopping on with us, tell us who you are, where you're from. If you're not familiar, my name is Renee, and we're talking about rebuilding trust after loss. So navigating that journey, shifting from self-protection to self-trust. What does that look like? After a deep loss, our brain's natural defense mechanism is to guard our heart against future pain, right? And that's what we do. When we think, okay, somebody maybe can hurt us, we put up a wall. That's our mechanism, right? Maybe a wall, we keep people out, or maybe use self-sabotage. I used to be really good at that. You know, kind of leave people, or I don't want to say leave people. What's the right word I'm looking for? Sometimes we have a tendency to sabotage relationships before they can leave us, because maybe we have trust issues that they're going to stay. So, right. Okay. So what is the goal? The goal is to move from I must ensure no one hurts me again to I trust myself to handle it if they do. And kind of how I kind of got over putting up my wall was, okay, I really want to have people in my life again. I really want to have love in my life again. So what does that look like? That looks like there's a possibility that I could get hurt again, right? And that's hard. And so for me, it was just making a conscious decision that, okay, there is a chance that I could get hurt again, but I'm going to take that chance because I want somebody in my life, right? Sometimes it's just a mindset. So let's see. Acknowledge your resilience, right? Maybe remind yourself. For me, I had gotten through losses and trust issues before in my life. I can do this again, right? Remind yourself that you have survived losses before, right? We all have our first heartache, usually our first love, whenever that is, right, in our life. And so sometimes, we go back to, I survived that, or, maybe you had a hard breakup or whatever, and you've survived. So remind yourself that you're resilient. We're resilient as people in general. We're resilient. And, we've survived other things. For me in my life, I would have to say losing my husband was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I lost my daughter in 1994. That was pretty hard. I didn't think that my heart would ever be shattered and put back together again. And so I've had my heart shattered multiple times now in this lifetime. And you think, it's just shattered and there's no way to put it back together again, but it is possible. And realizing that there was so many struggles in my life that I have made it through, and I can make it through this one too, right? So reminding yourself how resilient that you really are. Thank you for all those, Daniel. Did you guys just see that orb go floating by? I hope I'm not missing the chat. Anybody? I just want to make sure I didn't miss any comments. Okay. So remind yourself how resilient you are, and that resilience will help you navigate any emotional waves that come in the future. Starting small, right? Maybe you get into another relationship or friendship or whatever it is, right? Jump in with small vulnerabilities, right? Maybe not open up completely. Maybe just give a little bit, talk a little bit, and remember boundaries. That was huge for me. I didn't have any. When I lost my husband, that was one of the learning experiences that I went through. I didn't have any boundaries. They were non-existent. And so for me, I did go through a few heartaches and some turbulent waters, you could say, because I didn't have boundaries. I had to learn that, right? And so learning to set small boundaries, and then with whoever that relationship, whether it's a friendship or a partnership, setting those boundaries, but being very observant, noticing how the other person reacts to those boundaries, right? I've spoken to people since my husband's passed, and when I started to learn boundaries and set boundaries, they didn't like it. When I started to set boundaries with people, then those people would slowly just fade out of my life, because now I had boundaries. So now they didn't want to be a part of my life because, they didn't want to observe my boundaries. and that's okay. And, you know, one of the hardest lessons with boundaries is learning that when somebody doesn't observe your boundary and they leave your life, that's not always a bad thing. I know sometimes it feels like it really sucks at the moment, but sometimes how I look at it now is that's the divine moving them out of your life, which is protection for you, right? So changing your, sorry, I have a gnat, changing your perspective. That was a huge thing for me. Changing your perspective and how I looked at things. Just flipping that perspective a little bit sometimes of, okay, yeah, it really sucks that this person left my life, but they left my life because something better is coming, or, you know, like I said, it's divine protection. Okay, so then as you're observing how they are taking your boundaries, if they handle the small moments well, then maybe you can share a little bit more next time, right? Building that trust gradually, taking baby steps. So if you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. If you're not familiar, my name is Renee. If you're new here, tell me who you are and where you're from. Did I just say that? Oh, one of those nights. Okay. Learning to laugh at yourself. That's another lesson that I've learned in 2.5 years. Remember, you don't owe anyone anything. You don't owe anyone anything, right? Especially you don't owe them your full history of your trauma. You know, I learned, hi, Kelly from Maryland. Welcome. Glad to have you here. I learned with one person, he just wanted to know my trauma so he could turn around and use it against me. Because he was one of those people that then thought he could use it to manipulate me and go against my boundaries. Well, what he didn't understand and realize is by that time, Renee had learned her boundaries, learned how to stand up for my boundaries and go, no, this isn't happening. Bye. Sayonara. Have a great life. You know, I wish you well, but you're not meant to be with me. Right. And that's hard sometimes because, you know, maybe you're attached to that person. But here's the thing is learning to choose you first. And that was something that I didn't do for 32 years. I never chose me. And so I now know that I'm going to choose me first, right? So like I said, you don't owe anyone anything. And here's the thing, you don't owe them an explanation either, right? If somebody's stepping all over your boundaries, it's okay to let somebody go. And it doesn't matter. And I say this all the time. If somebody's stealing your peace, it doesn't matter. In my world, it can be your mother, your brother, my child, it doesn't matter. If you're stealing my peace and you're stepping all over my boundaries, you're gone. My peace is the most important thing in my world now. That's all I have left. So it's okay. You don't owe anybody anything. Have direct language, like, you know, maybe just be upfront. Sometimes it's okay to be upfront. Like I said, depending on the person, you can just say, look, I'm taking it slow, you know, and that's okay. Right. And there again, that's a boundary that I want to take it slow. And if somebody doesn't understand that, then they're not your friend. They're not your person. They're not whatever. Right. It's okay to take it at whatever pace you want to take it at. And like I said, that's a boundary. So if they want to cross that boundary, they don't want to uphold that boundary, sayonara. It's okay. Setting clear expectations though. And that's where I still struggle sometimes, right? Because I'm human. We're all human. But letting them know what consistency looks like. And just you being consistent. And sometimes, and for me I was learning that I didn't have a boundary with, I just let people give me whatever they were going to give me. And it's like, no, I'm worth more than that. And I'm not going to just accept that, right? So knowing what your boundary is and what you are willing to accept, because remember how you allow people to treat you right? That's kind of on you. So remember that. It's how we allow people to treat us. So there again, kind of has to go along with, your boundaries, your peace, all of that good stuff. Separating the past from the present. Grief and trauma can blur the lines between, I can't talk tonight or ever. Grief and trauma can blur the lines between your history and current reality, which is true. Sometimes we can get into that old story, what I like to call the old story, right? Sometimes we've grown and moved on from certain triggers and traumas and things in our life. And then other things will trigger us and put us back into that old story, right? Oh, they don't want to talk to me and I'm not worthy to be talked to, or whatever it is that old story is, right? I'm not worthy of love sometimes. And so that's what I call a trigger that we have to heal, right? So if somebody can trigger you, that means that you have something left to heal. Sorry, my phone is just blowing up. So knowing whether if it's a realistic thing, or like I said, or if it's just the old story talking to you, right? And learning how to shut that old story down, which I'm still human and I still have that happen to me, right? Things will come up and that old story will come in and start giving me that whatever it is, that story of my past. And you have to really learn how to go, no, that's the old story. That's not what's happening. And, kind of get into the current situation and not listen to that old story. And sometimes it's our ego, because our ego is there to protect us, but sometimes we have to learn how to tell the ego to shut up also. Okay, so there again, someone triggers you, stop and ask yourself, is this person actually doing something untrustworthy right now? Or is this a behavior bringing up that old story? Right? That's a great question. But learning how to be able to regulate our emotions and take a step back and say, ask yourself that question versus getting all caught up in that old story right away and those old triggers and old emotions. Knowing yourself well enough to be able to take a pause and ask. Allowing yourself to grieve the old you. That is extremely important. I had to grieve the old me. I had to grieve the old life that I thought I was going to have. When my husband left, we had goals and dreams and things and aspirations that we wanted to do. And so that all crumbled when he left, and learning how to, grieve that, because you have to grieve it. That's part of that old story, that old life, whatever that maybe is no longer, but you have to grieve that. It's kind of an important step. Thank you for the likes, Daniel. I appreciate that. And remembering you're not broken, right? Sometimes, when loss happens and we have other unhealed trauma, we can kind of, like I said, go into that old story thinking, I'm not worthy. Like for me, it would have been very easily for me to take those old traumas from maybe my childhood of him leaving and go, everybody leaves me, and I'll be honest, I did, that thought crossed my mind several times. My dad left, now he left me after 32 years. And so that's where the wall went up and the trust issue came, is because I had that old story telling me everybody leaves, right? So it's just easier sometimes to sabotage stuff before they get a chance to leave too. Does that make sense? Okay. Where am I at? But so allowing yourself to grieve that old person, know you're not broken. And trust may look different than it did before, right? You're maybe in a different relationship, whether it be a friendship or a partnership. That trust can look different because that's a different person, right? So not holding those, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, I might have trusted my husband because, you know, he had all of these traits, you know what I mean? And so I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for, and it's not coming tonight. Just know that trust can look different with different people, I guess, right? Give yourself grace and celebrate the small wins. That's something that's really hard for people, myself included. Knowing that, okay, I have made these strides. I am still human. Sometimes that old story comes, and sometimes I still listen, even though I don't want to. But give yourself grace and celebrate when you do get those small wins of, okay, you know, maybe you were able to set a boundary with somebody and they wasn't respecting your boundary and you held your boundary. That is a win. Celebrate that win, because that is really important in your journey of evolving and growing. So learn to celebrate it. That's pretty much all I have tonight. Did anybody else have a loss or any questions or anything else they wanted to say? I forgot to say, we are not shy here. So my page is your page. You are welcome to chime in anytime. I forgot to say that. While I'm waiting to see if anybody else had any comments, I also have a YouTube channel, if you're not familiar, under Scorpio Medium. You'll find all of my reels that I do here over there. The only difference is if you like my lives and you want to catch a past one, I upload all of them over there, except for sometimes I don't upload my mini read nights. I am here right now. My schedule is Tuesday through Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tonight was my first night this whole week. I might be back tomorrow night. I'm not quite sure. We'll see how tomorrow goes. Like I said, I'm here on Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that's when we do mini read nights. So if you're wanting a mini read, hop on Wednesday night to get that. I do full readings, and you can send me an email, which you'll find in my bio down below. So that's how you would set those up, is through, and sometimes if you just DM me on here too, I can set that up for you. Last but not least, I do have a Venmo. So if you would like to leave me a tip, you enjoy my content and would like to leave me a tip, I do have a Venmo down there below too. Always greatly appreciated, but never expected. Anybody else have anything else for me? Any questions? Anybody? Dean, I will message you after we're done here if you're still on. I don't even know if he's still here. Anybody else? Going once? Anybody? Going twice? Okay. Well, thank you for all the love and everything. I hope you all have a great night. Remember to make tomorrow great, because it is a choice. And I will be back possibly tomorrow night. If I'm not here tomorrow night, I will see you all. Hey, Sheila, how are you? How are you doing, girl? I'm just about to hop off. Missed me? Yeah, you just missed me. Go over to Scorpio Medium. I'll have it downloaded by tomorrow morning sometime. Sometimes it takes me 24 hours to get it over there. But yeah. So, like I said, remember to make tomorrow great, because it is a choice. Totally broke down. Do I need to message you? Do you need to message me? Do we need to have a chat? I had one of those moments last on 4th of July, so it happens. It's okay, long as you didn't unpack and live there. Okay, I'll send you a message, okay? All right, guys, remember to make tomorrow great, because it's a choice. If you don't see me tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, I will be back here on Tuesday. Not sure what we're talking about yet, but until we meet again.